Okay, we'll go ahead and start. We may have a few more come in, hopefully, but thank you for coming. We're going to talk today about this Kairos prison ministry that I've been involved with, and Liz has recently gotten involved with it. She'll share a little about what she's doing as we go through it. But I thought, first of all, there's always the confusion. This is different Kairos than what we normally talk about at UCG. Kairos actually stands for God's time as opposed to chronos, which is regular time, as we're familiar with. So it's God's time. Let's see if this is going to work. Is this this one? And it may not work. We had trouble with it last week. Do I point it to you? It's not working. Going forward again. Where actually goes forward. Oh, okay. So first I thought I'd just explain a little bit about the history of Kairos, where it came from. So this started as a movement in the Roman Catholic Church in 1940s in Spain. And it started because men were not going to the cathedral, for mass. And so we needed to find some way to get men more involved in the church. And it's actually a group of lay men that were involved with a priest that designed a lay program for a weekend. And the idea was this developing a short course in Christianity. But it's more than that, as we'll talk about. And since that time, guess I've moved too fast. Oh, you moved it. Well, that's all right. Okay. So we have now, since that time, well, we missed because can you go back up? Yeah, I missed quite a bit there. Can I go back? Oh, okay. I will, maybe I need to put this down. Okay. So the first Cursillo in the US started in Texas in 1957. And initially it was just in Spanish because it came from Spain and the Spanish people. But eventually then it was given in English. We still, in fact, have some, because in the prison ministry, we have some people that just speak Spanish. So we actually usually try to put them together with one of the team members that speaks Spanish. We have at least one Hispanic on our team, so they better understand what's going on. And then we have a Bible that we can give them in Spanish, so as a part of the service. So they started the first Cursillo. It was called Cursillo in Prison. So it still was run by the Catholic Church, but it was a separate program, obviously somewhat different from the weekend. So a separate program, but eventually they decided this was so different in the way it was operated that it just needed to stand alone. The headquarters is actually in Florida, but it started off in Texas. The first Cursillo in prison was actually in UCI in Rayford here in Florida in 1976. And because of the confusion, the Catholic Church said, well, you need to be your own program. You need to have a different name. So it was then changed to Kairos in 1979. Now there's more than 500 correctional institutions in 37 states and 9 countries that have Kairos organizations. So it's a global organization. You'll hear, hopefully, I'll play a little later, a little video where he talked about 400 and some institutions. That was one done some years ago. So anyway, it's up to this large number. And I say it's a short course in Christianity, but Liz and I went through I guess I'll get to the next one here. We'll talk about it. Okay. So since that time, I'll get ahead of myself. Since that time, Cursillo was allowed some people that were not Catholic to go for the weekend, but it was focused on the Catholics. Had some issues like communion you could only do if you were Catholic and some other issues like that. So ultimately, a variety of groups, very similar, started similar fourth-day movements: Episcopal Cursillo, Presbyterian Cursillo, Lutheran Via de Cristo. The Walk to Emmaus that Liz and I participated in 1990, and Tres Dias. Walk to Emmaus is quite ecumenical as well. It's The weekend I went, the Presbyterian minister was the spiritual director, and Liz and I both have not only went through it, but worked on the teams for quite a few years afterwards. I think I did about 10 years of working on those teams. And it's more than just a short course in Christianity. In fact, just speak to Walk to Emmaus, most of the people coming through are already active in their churches. It's really a chance for self-evaluation and say, what's next? How do I grow deeper? What do I do differently than what I'm doing? And the goal of these organizations is largely creating church leadership, people that are active, involved in their churches. A little different purpose for the Kairos. Kairos is not going to develop church leaders per se, but we want to develop a Christian community and that type of leadership within the prison, people that will be an active part of the community, Christian community in the prison itself. So it's a little bit different focus. So those are the focuses. The benefits, though, there are major benefits to the person. So the organizations are we're looking more at developing a community, but in fact, there's some life-changing things that can occur. As it did for me, it was a kind of a changed my whole perspective from just going to Sunday church and checking that box to actually feeling more involved and trying to grow deeper in my faith. So that's kind of that history of it. Oop, now it went too far. This is a tricky thing here. Is it? Okay. This is very frustrating.
Back in the old days, you just.
Okay, I guess I was right. Yeah. Okay, so the Kairos program, I'm going to be talking primarily about one that's called Kairos Inside. That's because this program occurs inside the prison. And this is what I just said, it's develop a Christian community, and a major part of that is this weekend that we have coming up in March. 3.5 days, we'll talk about a little later. There's also one called Kairos Outside. Not too many years after they started the prison ministry, one of the chaplains in Texas that was involved too came up with this idea that we need to have a program for the people that are related to the prisoners. So, you know, the people on the outside are ostracized as well. Your husband is in prison, your son is in prison, you can't talk about it, you feel embarrassed about it, you know, and so how do we get those people to have some sort of shared, so they run a program to get those people to have a group, and then they can share going forward. All of these want to have a follow-up after these weekends where you're really sharing with other people, where you feel open to talk about your faith or your struggles or your things you want to change or whatever. So that's Kairos Outside. And then more recently, one called Kairos Torch. I don't know much about this last one. I think it's more of just a mentoring one-on-one program for youth offenders. These are people 25 years of age or younger. And what you don't think about is how young some of these guys go into prison. And I'll just tell you a story now because I'm afraid I'll forget it later that I just learned on our team meeting. So one of our members of our team meeting was put in prison when he was 15. One of our team members that's going back into the prison. He was put into prison at 15. He didn't even know how to drive. He hadn't had a driver's license yet. He was in there 33 years, I think. So he's out in his 50s. He's never driven a car. So he has to get a driver's license and learn how to drive. Well, in prison, he actually did education. He actually, I think, got to a level of something similar to a Master's of Divinity. So he went through this program. It really changed his life. He got out. He was in for murder. He ultimately got out after 30-some years, going in at 15. Why I want to tell this story partially is just this thing that happened that puts life into perspective. He's telling me that he is now out working in Jacksonville. He's working at, I think it was a Lowe's or a Home Depot, one of the two. And if any For those of you who've been in Jacksonville in traffic, it's terrible, and they usually have the roads torn up. And anyway, he's married now, and he's calling his wife to say, I am stuck in traffic. It is terrible. He's frustrated. I'm going to be 2 hours late for dinner, blah, 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 blah. And then his wife says to him, would you rather be in prison? So it's sort of amazing how conditions we can go into different things, and then the next thing you know, we're back into these into frustrations of life. Okay, a little out of sequence, but I just prayed I would. It's just a cute thing that I just heard, I guess, in our last team meeting. Boy, yeah, I think I'm just going to say next because this is too frustrating. Okay, so what are we involved with at Lake Butler? So we have 3 different kinds of activities. The first is monthly evening meetings, and these include a meditation, that often a scripture reflection, a teaching moment, which is more like a little mini sermon. I'm going to actually be doing one right before this next weekend, one of the monthly ones. So I'll have a Lenten theme for a teaching moment. And then we have lots of singing with guitar. We have cookies and coffee. And then we end with small group prayer and share time, which is where you get together with one another.
Say what RMC. Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay, Lake Butler RMC is Reception and Medical Center. And just to tell you what it's like there, so this is where everybody, I understand, I don't know if all of Florida, but at least North Florida, everybody comes to this facility when they're sentenced to prison. And then eventually they get sent to different places. Medical, if it isn't the only one, it's the major medical center for prisoners in Florida. And so a lot of the guys that we have come to all of our programs are in wheelchairs because they're on dialysis. That's long-term, so they're there forever. Long-term medical treatment, cancer, chemotherapies, things that take a long time. And so and then the other group are ones that work in the prison. These are prisoners, but have jobs, and they stay there long-term. And so these would be the orderly. So quite a few of them actually work with, some of them come work with the same guys that they're in the hospital, and then they come to the, some of them do cooking, some do cleaning, janitorial work, some take care of their toilets and so forth. So it's a variety of jobs in there. Yeah.
That facility is only men, you keep talking about guys.
Yeah, this is a male-only facility. There's separate prisons for women. This is a male-only prison. There is also, there are also youth facilities as well, prisons in the system. So this is male-only. So we have this monthly, more formal meeting. Takes a couple hours, so go in the evening, have our presentation, sing, food, cookies, and then end with share groups, where we have a little list of questions they can share with one another. Some of them are or things like, when did you feel presence of God? Or when did you feel you didn't have God in your life? And things, they're those kind of focus, but in reality, these guys share a lot of different things when they're in these small groups. And one of the feedbacks I get all the time is, you know what I like about you guys? You actually listen to me. You actually listen to me. Nobody in this place listens to me. And that's the motto, I think I may have put it in here somewhere, is listen, listen, love, love. That is just to be open and listen to them. Now, sometimes you try to redirect, somebody gets all upset about the prison food or something, and it's like, okay, well, can we move on? You know, because sometimes what they're upset about isn't terribly deep in that sense, but it's what's on their mind. So just to listen to them is a huge thing for them. And to be present, because many of them their family have written them off. They haven't seen or heard from anybody in their family for years. And so all of a sudden, it's amazing, just your presence alone they're so thankful for a person from the outside is actually there. So if we did nothing that was related to religious theology, just showed up would be already a big plus, right? So we also have in the bi-monthly prayer and share groups, this is not a formal program, it's just where a few members show up every other Thursday, off Thursdays, and are there for 2 hours so the prisoners can come together and share. And you say, well, why don't they just do that on their own? Well, this is not what the prisons don't like. Wardens don't like groups of prisoners getting together on their own and talking. You know, this isn't, so they actually have to have a person that goes to the chapel that shows up so they can come share. Now, some of them do share, and some of them are lucky they'll talk and they say, my bunkmate and I read the Bible together or something. Or another one will say, well, I work with a guy in the boiler room and the two of us come to Kairos. And so there is some capability to share, but it's limited. And so that's offered. And then the last one is this weekend that we'll be talking about, 3.5 days. You go on, I've got an outline of it coming up, and this is coming up in March 21 through 24. So just a few weeks. And I'll talk a lot more about that coming up. Go ahead. Well, that's the motto. Go ahead. Let's see if this plays. Let me just introduce this before he hits play. So the first person you're going to see speaking is George Kirkpatrick. He's actually on our team going in this time. And so this talks a little bit about, this is mostly about a monthly gathering. So this is the time where we go into a program, not so much directly the full weekend. We'll talk more about that. So, and I'm not actually in this video. I missed that meeting, but I recognize much of our team members are in this video. So this is done 4 or 5 years ago, I guess. Go ahead. See if this.
Well, you know, coming through Kairos.
That's just done by our local group. I put the YouTube thing on there. So it just tells you a little bit about it, and you can go forward now. Have another video. There we go. So what does it take to put on one of these weekends that we're coming up to? Well, it involves a lot of things. It involves, first of all, Division of Correction training and registration and PIN numbers. So to go into prison, we actually have to have had training, things you can and can't bring in. You can't bring your cell phone. You can't, of course, bring pocket knives and variety of other things. Even the type of pin, they don't want one that has snaps, that has springs that could make into some sort of weapon and so on. So they have their set of rules. And so you have to go through training, then you have to have a background check and get a PIN number. And now they've recently initiated then fingerprinting, which we didn't have before. So it takes some effort. Liz is, we'll talk a little bit later, but she's also had to go through the training. Now you can do it online. I had to go sit there at Lake Butler for an hour or for a day hearing boring stuff, but you can do it online and get a number. So it takes that Division of Correction training. And one of the things you realize we're in their house. So stuff happens, it's always changing, and you do yes, whatever you say, because we don't complain, we don't challenge anything. It is their house, their rules. We want to be able to still stay there, so we accommodate. And sometimes in the middle of a sharing moment, they make all the prisoners go to the wall for a count because the count didn't work. And so sometimes we have had Thursday evenings canceled because they can't get the count right for the prison. They want to make sure everybody's there. So we just have to be accommodating as whatever happens. There's also a mandatory weekend Kairos training for new team members. So I'm actually, I'm kind of the second in command for this weekend. Next time I'll be in charge of the weekend. And so we have a number of things. Kairos loves having you do training. And so we've got this program manual on Kairos. Then in August, I went to a weekend training in Jacksonville area. And this is the manual just for the training for the leaders going forward, right? And then the weekend training that we'll talk about, this is some of the work then that's involved with the weekend. All the schedules, all the aspects and things that are involved in training. So I just bring that to say, this is a very well organized, very structured program. Then we have team training. This is 5 Saturdays. And we do this at the Catholic Fellowship Hall, Catholic Church in Stark. And the main reason we do it there, most of I'd say 3/4 of our team are Gainesville and some of the surrounding towns, Alachua and Lutz, wherever Lutz is, and some other towns. But the rest are Jacksonville area. And so we say, well, this is more central. So we have the guys from Jacksonville come, and they're the same ones, not only on this weekend, but on the ones that go to prison on a monthly basis, the Jacksonville group. So they come there. There's a lot of work to coordinate this with the chaplain, and sometimes chaplains are more helpful than others and can be very frustrating. But we have to come up with the number of the inmates that can go on the weekend. They have to volunteer and apply to the chaplain to do the weekend. And then also on the team, we have what are called angels, which are prisoners that have been through the weekend, either ours or somewhere, one of the other prisons. Many of the Florida prisons have this program. So some of them have been through a different prisons program. Then they can be assistants. You never go through the weekend twice. The same is true for all these, what we call fourth day weekends, which I just remembered I need to say why they're fourth day weekends. But you can go back and work teams. And so the angels essentially are helping with that, going through that weekend. So it's a way of experiencing it in a different way as a support person. We have to arrange all the items that are brought into prisons. This including the food and drinks and snacks and so forth. And these all have to be listed, exactly how many of what, and you have bins and they have to be counted off, and you have to show how, you can get by with a stack of cups. I don't think they count how many cups, but they get very well, there's less Bibles than you have on your list or more or something. So you have can't bring in stuff at the spur of the moment. It all has to be planned ahead of time. And we are able then, for this weekend, we can bring in, so we'll have the snacks, that'll be cookies and chips and things and soft drinks and that sort of thing that we can bring in from the outside. And then we can bring in food for 3 meals for lunches. And this is actually amazingly food, in that we have the snacks, of course, when we go for our other program. Food becomes a really important part for them. And the first weekend I worked at one of the tables we'll talk more about, we had Sonny's barbecue brought in, and the guy just started tearing up. He said, I have not eaten Sonny's for 20 years. This is like he's having a moment of his childhood almost, going back to Sonny's. Luckily, actually, we're going to have Sonny's again this weekend because John Kirkpatrick, who's has been involved with these communities, not on our team now, but he's been involved with the work before. He happens to own a couple of Sundays, and so he's donated that meal. We have to buy the other one. So we'll have, I think we're having pizza for one, and I can't remember what the other chicken probably. Do you know where we're getting the chicken? Yeah. But these are, I mean, I have eaten prison food. In fact, the weekend before this that I was on, we were not allowed to bring in food from the outside. The rules change all the time. We had to eat their food. I mean, your lunch was a stale white bread with a piece of bologna and some mayo. That was it. I think there was an apple. I mean, but the sandwich is like the worst sandwich you could have. So this is a big deal for them to have. And we always get extra because one of the things we do is share it with the chaplain and any of the guards around, because one of the things you want is people want you to come back. So we always are extremely positive interaction with our guards. We don't let the prisoners, they don't do it much, but every once in a while, a prisoner in a small group starts bad-mouthing a guard or something. We say, well, that's not what we're here for, because we want to be supportive of those people. They have tough jobs, inside that, trying to run the prison. So, yeah. The last one is gathering agape, and this is, Liz is going to talk more about the agape coming up, except the green agape. Green agape is just our way of saying fundraising. So we have. Oh. Yeah, but you're going to talk about all the forms of agape. So because Liz is involved on the outside in gathering the agape and part of the agape process. So it's a form of love. There's different types of eros, different types of love, filial love, and so on. Agape is, I guess, defined as giving, sharing kind of love. And so that's where we use the word agape for that, sharing, loving with them. And I did skip past the fourth day, and you'll see it again here, to talk about why all these Kairos and all these other movements, walk to Emmaus and everything, are called fourth day movements. Because the idea is you come in to spend this weekend, which can be fairly intense. These weekends, even though this is all men on the outside, all those other weekends are men only and women only weekends. They are usually one. Like Liz, I went to the first one, and a week later, Liz goes to one. And I think it's really important for men, because if you want men to share and to really open up where they are and who they are, they're not going to do it with women around, right? So it becomes really important for, well, a few men will. Modern men might, but most won't. Well, I would now, but I probably wouldn't have then when I went in 1990. That's a long time. So the fourth day, the reason the fourth day comes about then is you go through this weekend, which for me and for many was amazing. You are pumped up. I am going to go in a new direction with new energy that I didn't have before. And then you have to go back into the world, and it didn't have a great weekend. In fact, my weekend, this was a real slap in the face, right? The weekend before mine, we had taken my daughter Ashley to FSU to start college. The Monday after I got home, it was the Gainesville murders, Danny Rollins. And I went, well, they told us the fourth day was not going to be glorious. This was a real kick in the face. Wow. So these are called fourth day weekends to say we want to have a great experience and get you, but the world didn't change. You may have changed, may have not. Some people are impacted more than others, but the world didn't change. And so there's a fourth day talk. And we're going to have, at the end of this, one of the prisoners, that's one of the guys that was in for life that got out 30 some years, is going to share a fourth day, what it's been like, in his case, not just after Kairos, but probably after prison, to show guys what's it like after prison. Part of it is really tough after prison. I was just in a small group that lasted a month ago, and then one of the guys I was sharing with, he was just nervous. He said, couldn't stop. And it was like, he didn't say anything. He was, everybody else talked, and I finally said, you seem really nervous. And he said, I'm getting out in a month, and I'm frightened to death. I don't know if I'm going to be able to stay out. I've got my family's all on drugs, and my friends are all, how do I ever get my act together? And then I said, well, do you have a church? Well, I went to church with grandma, but I never went to, So all of a sudden, the frightening part, and many of them will tell you, I would be dead if I wasn't in prison, because my brother's dead, my friends are dead, they're gang violence, whatever. So it's tough the fourth day. So we have a talk at the end of this to say, what's your fourth day going to be like? And not only after this weekend, but long term. That's what the fourth day is. Okay, go ahead. So what's our team like? This one coming up, they're all similar. We call it the inside team. Those are those of us guys that'll spend those days. We don't sleep in there, but we're in there morning till evening, morning till dinner time for those 3 days plus Thursday evening. So it's 20 people plus hopefully 6 angels from the inside. We're getting names. A couple of them that volunteered actually haven't been on the weekend, so they have to go on the weekend. You can't volunteer to be an angel. So, it's ecumenical, more Methodist probably than any, because Bob Edmonds, whose voice was on that thing, was the one that organized it to start with, this particular one in Lake Butler. But Baptist, Catholic, Episcopalian, Church of God, we've got one UCG person, and then several non-denominationals that that I'm not sure what they are. 4 of our members going in had previously been in prison. 3 of them were life that have now gotten out. One that you heard just was on death row got out. And then one who was only 6 years that was in prison. One member had just shared recently, his son just got put in prison with a 20-some year sentence. So he's particularly interested because his son is now in prison. Most of us are white. We have 2 black members going in and 1 Hispanic member going in. So we have some diversity there. And inside, most of our weekends, as well as the gatherings, are usually about half black, half white, or half white and mostly black with some Hispanic. So it's a pretty good mix of people going in. And then the outside team that Liz is going to talk what the outs, because she's on the outside team. And they go inside for closing, so they're not there for the rest of the service, but on Sunday afternoon they will come in and the prisoners will share what this has been like for them. They'll have a microphone. We'll have the fourth day speaker, and so they'll get to experience that part of it. And currently these are all spouses of the team, but they haven't always been. I remember the first team we had, it came from the Methodist Church women, and several of them said got some friend, or one of them at least got a friend to come. So, it could be a guy. So far we haven't had men on the outside, but it could be. It's people willing to serve in that way. And I think, go to the next one. I think, okay, Liz will take over. Can you give this, turn this on? Question? Sure.
I was I noticed on one of the pictures, I thought I saw a man with a yarmulke, and I was wondering how many, what would Jewish or Muslim types or some other type of, following, how much are they involved?
So anyone is welcome. Oh, I have one here. Yeah, anyone is welcome. Actually, the first weekend I worked, I had a Hindu at our table. And, he had really enjoyed the weekend. I don't think we made him a Christian, because this whole idea of the nature of God and love, that just resonated with him. And so, yeah, we do have, it's open to anyone. There is no requirements at all. And so we do have people, mostly it's Christian or just not committed at all. They don't even know, come. thanks for the question. Yeah.
As we know at UCG, you just, despite your theology, you just have your lens through which you see things and you take out of it what fits for you. And that's what, I think that's the way these men do who are of other backgrounds. So this is my first time to be on the outside team for the Kairos weekends. And so what the support team does on the inside while the men are having their meetings on Saturdays, we are providing food for them. So we get there early and fix breakfast for them before the team meeting starts. And then we prepare lunch at lunchtime, and we have snacks throughout the day and that sort of thing. So we do a lot of cooking. And on the weekend itself, yes.
Then, are you talking?
The team, yes, the inside team,
And
not the prisoners, because this is just for right now I'm talking about the team meetings, the 5 Saturdays in Stark. So we're doing that. And then when the weekend occurs, we will do the cooking at Trinity United Methodist. We will cook the team's breakfast that's served at 5:15 in the morning before they go out to work that day on the team meeting. And then we have dinner for them when they come back at night. We pick up the lunch that is being donated or taken, and we take that to the prison. And then during the weekend, we are praying for each of the talks. There are 10 talks that are given to the prisoners, and the outside people are praying for each of those speakers as their talks are going on. And one of the things you probably didn't notice it, I noticed it in the picture because I've never actually seen where they have their meetings out there, obviously. So they had this paper chain hanging up all around the room. So that's what our outside support group makes, these paper chains. We hook these all together, and each of these chains has the name of someone who has said they will pray for these prisoners on this weekend. So my job as being the newbie on the team this year was to type up all the names that were submitted. So everybody who's on the team gathers names of people who will pray for the prisoners on this weekend. So I'm typing up all those names. And then we have flyers that come in from all over the world. From some of these that I have gone through have been from Africa and New Zealand and Australia. And so they're from all over the world, where people have different groups make flyers and sign their names or send little messages saying they'll be thinking about these prisoners on this weekend. So I have gone through all of these flyers and tried to decipher names and type the names onto lists of paper. So right now I have 150 pages of names with 13 names per page, because they have to be big enough that they can be read on the paper chain. So we'll cut those up, we have them copied onto colored paper and cut them up and make them into a paper chain. And we also have prisoners who have been on Kairos weekends before, who are committing to praying for these people on these weekends also. And so I have flyers from the prisoners themselves, and we put their names on, and theirs are in white in the chain. So this is a really apparently impactful thing when the prisoners come in. I think they don't do this until Friday. The weekend starts on Thursday, and then Friday morning, when the prisoners come in for the team meeting, this paper chain is hanging up all around the room. And it's hundreds and hundreds of people who have committed to praying for these people on this weekend. And they are overwhelmed by somebody thinking about it, somebody caring about them. And so it's a really it's a really powerful thing. So, so we've already have some of the groups already did their chains and sent them to us that way. And then others just gave us stacks of colored papers here that they had people sign. John has a stack here. If you want to say you would pray for, then you put them on there. And of course, because it's a prison, we can't use staples to do the paper chain. So they all have to be taped individually. So it's apparently quite a long project. But anyway, I don't know that there's anything else that we do on the outside. We are allowed to go to the closing. So at the end, as John was saying, they have the closing ceremony where all of these fourth day weekends, they have a closing ceremony where anyone who has gone through has the opportunity to say what the weekend has meant to them and what they're going to do with it on their fourth day, what they intend to do with it. So that's apparently a really moving thing to go to the closing ceremony and hear what the prisoners have said. It's been really moving for me to be a part of the team, and on these team meetings when we're not busy in the kitchen, we get to go out and participate in the team training. And to hear these prisoners, because we do have 4 people on the team who are former prisoners themselves, and to hear them talk about what that weekend meant to them and how transformative it was. Just, I mean, it just sends chills up and down your spine. It's just like, wow, so it's a real ministry to these people, and it's so needed, as we all know. So I don't think I have anything else to say about it, but stacks of agape. That's called agape. Any act of love that you are doing for the people on this weekend. So it's food agape, it's this agape, it's this agape. All those things are referred to in these movements as agape.
Yes.
How often?
Microphone.
How often do these weekends occur?
So we've so far in our group, we've only been able to do them on a yearly basis, except we had COVID. In fact, the last one we did before this, and it took us a while to get permission and go up again. The last one we did, they closed the prison the Monday. We finished on Sunday. So we weren't even sure if we were going to get to finish it because we knew COVID was coming. And I remember just praying like, I hope none of us brought in COVID to these guys, because we're coming in those days that was already out there, but the prison had not been closed. And fortunately, that prison didn't have anything for quite a while, well, months, I think. And none of us on the team got anything. So we felt like, whoa, we were fortunate. Some of the prisons will do 2 a year. If you have like out of Jacksonville, where they have a lot more people, because part of it is it's a major commitment. It's 5 Saturdays of preparation. For leadership, it's additional training, and then the weekends 3 more days. And so those people that have jobs and stuff, it gets harder to family and so forth. And so we do tend to have somewhat older group. I wish we had younger people, and we do have some that are still jobs, and sometimes they can't make a team meeting. I got to work that day and stuff like that because they work Saturdays. But probably, I don't know if any of them do more than 2 a year in the prison. And what you hope is that you're not, although I did read on their website that one of the small prisons actually had 1 out of 6 people in that prison had been on this Kairos weekend, which is amazing. And you hope that you have an impact by starting a group of people that have a different approach to life in that prison. Okay, go ahead. And what Liz showed, these will be, you'll see it later here. I think Liz, oh yeah. Well,
can you hear me? Okay. Working with students, we always have to have clearance, and it sounded like it's very structured with regard to that. I loved the video of the event, but did you have to get permission to show people? And is this out on the internet? And, there are privacy issues with regard to incarcerated people. Did everybody that's in that video have to sign or give permission for that to be out there?
Yeah. Yes, there are, in fact, we each year get one picture of everybody that's on the weekend. The hard part is, how do you get a camera in there? Because they don't let us bring cell phones. And so we have to arrange for the chaplain or somebody to get access to a camera. The other is every prisoner has to sign off that they can take, their picture can be in there. So they actually have to sign that. And I'll show you a couple of pictures at the end. The reason I have them is because the assistant warden, actually a woman that was really involved with this, really supportive, took pictures and gave it to us. So, but it's really hard to get pictures, and you have to do lots to get permission. Go ahead. I got a little time to finish up. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was just wondering, is this throughout all the prisons in Florida or not?
Many of them, I don't know what percent, but many of them are.
Okay.
And the training we did they do that in different locations around the country. And most of the people that when I was trained were from Florida prisons, men and women. So there was quite a few women being trained because they have the same Kairos going in with women teams.
Like Lowell?
Like
for
Lowell,
women?
yeah.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead, and I'll just try to quickly go since we're about to run out of time here. So it begins on Thursday. There's lists those 10 talks, and they start with the very first one is called choices, which is a good way to, how did you get here? What choices did you make, really? The next one's you're not alone, which is a positive thing. I won't go through all of them. It ends with a talk called Hang In There. It's tough. And then we have the fourth day talk. There's lots of singing, of course, in between these talks. Go ahead. So the tables, in our case, we can't really handle a large group because of the space and the team members. The Kairos requires a certain number of people for each team, each table, and outside people. And so we're really limited to 18 people going through. And so we had, if you remember, there's 20 team members. It's almost a one-to-one on this process. After each talk, so there's 10 talks. After each talk, there's a couple of minutes of meditation or silence about that. What did you get from this? And then there is discussion. And that gets quite interesting when you have guys sharing some of the choice I made and things like that. So it can get quite emotional at times in the sharing time. And then they have to do a poster. And this is usually stick people and stuff about the talk. What did this talk say to you? And they have to be creative. We encourage everybody to work part of the poster. And then later there'll be poster sharing time. It's kind of a fun thing later on in that weekend. I would just say two things about the table that Liz mentioned. We'll show you a picture. She said we had seen it, but she saw it last night. You haven't seen the change yet in the wall. When they bring in the chains actually while we're at the tables, partway through the first day. And I'm sitting at a table and the first time comes through and they come in with bags of chains and they're taking them out and starting to tape them all over the walls and everybody's looking at what are these? And then they're explained to them, these are people that are praying for you. I'm sitting across from a guy that's been there 30 years and he just starts crying. He just starts crying because he's one of those that says nobody cares. And so it's a powerful sort of experience to have that. But that chance of trying to get everybody to share is, and everybody to be a part of that poster preparation and sharing. And then there is a chance later in the weekend where the teams themselves go to the chapel by themselves to have a share and prayer time. And so not the teams, the table, yeah. Okay, go ahead. I think we're about done here. There's some of the ones that can't see, all of them goes around the room, but there's some of the, I think we're going to have more this time. This is there I am looking, gosh, I think I look fat, but I guess I am fat. And so this is just team picture and the left. Yeah. Go ahead. And just the guitars, usually all the music and most of it, we have a whole separate songbook because you have to have copyright permission for the Kairos songbook, but it's most of the old songs. probably the most popular one is I'll Fly Away, you know. From these prison bars have flown, you know, so that's probably the favorite part of that song. So these are most of the ones if you grew up in a Methodist or Baptist or one of the routine sort of thing. These are the kind of songs. Of course, Amazing Grace is always one. Maybe it is the most popular, so that's one that's always popular. But that type of song sung to guitars. So its impact, certainly we see lots of lives change, hearts change, people talk to you, share with you what this has meant to them. The wardens say that this group, basically as they get more of them, decreases the amount of violence in the prison and decreases recidivism. And so ours is more that part of creating the community where goal is not necessarily, we're happy if it reduces recidivism, but that's not the major focus of it. But communities are certainly safer if some of these people don't come back in and quit doing crimes. That's a help. And they even point on their website, there's an economic benefit, $30,000 a year to keep a prisoner. If you have the left of them in there, you save public $30,000 in that process. And I took this off the last thing, maybe there's two things, off the website. So this was based on 505 prisoners from Florida prisons, and they looked at the non-Kairos recidivism rate. I don't know what the period of time was on the study, but it was 23%. I'm surprised it's that low, but that's what they said. People that had done something in Kairos, a monthly meeting, or I don't know about the weekends, but they were less. But the ones that were actually participating, that went on a weekend and came back and share group, now we're down to 10%. So it definitely enhances, you know, the likelihood you're going to come back in there if you've been participating. And one more. And lastly, if you're willing to agree to pray at some point, Melissa and I've been praying for this weekend for months, but at some point for the weekend, I'd love to have you sign this poster. So one of the things that were on the walls, you see these type of things will be put on the walls and sometimes bigger posters. Well, we have one here that I'd like to see if you're willing to pray at some point here for the weekend. If you would sign it, we just have the first name and an initial because we don't want, we're trying not to have people identified beyond that. You can sign that, and if you want to put your name on one of the slips, we can do it, or Liz could take the name off here if we needed to. So it's another thing. This will be put up on the wall as one of those posters, if you will, on that time. I actually drew one, a bigger one, and it was embarrassing. I showed it to Liz, and she cringed, and so then I went and made this one and got it printed at UPS store, so I could. Not of you, but a photo you took? Yeah, this is a photo I took. Yeah, this is Christ. Yes, yeah. Liz thought that especially funny. Yeah, you know, this is Christ the Redeemer at Rio. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Okay, so I think that's it. I think we're almost out of time for the other questions. Yeah.
When you go there, do all the prisoners of that in there come, or I saw them, you said graduates of the program. Do they have, like they have to sign up ahead or what?
They have to apply to go on the weekend. And then once they have completed the weekend, then the Kairos actually keeps a record of who went for a weekend, what dates, at what prisons. And so that's where we had, when people signed up and said, we had couples sign up and say, I want to go through a weekend. We found out they've already gone through a weekend. And then we had a couple who want to be angels, and they're supposed to have, and they hadn't. And so we know, well, let's switch some people around. Still participate, but in a different way. So that's, they get a cross, but there's no special certificate or something like that, but there is a record kept.
I'm not sure if this is what you were asking, Kitty, but I think that the prisoners who have gone through Kairos at various prisons get together when men from the outside come in and have those structured meetings once a month or something. So that's their time to gather anybody who's been on a Kairos weekend anywhere in that prison then can come get together with other people who have been.
But what about like what percentage of all the prisoners out there in wherever you, with prison, I don't know how many there are, what percentage of the prisoners participate?
Oh,
I'm just trying to get an idea of that.
ours is probably not the best one to look at because it's transient population. So a lot of them come in, are only there. In fact, we've got a list of people that are gonna go on this weekend, and the warden has got a backup list, more than the 18, because he's already had 2 get transferred. But he doesn't have any control of it. They want to go through the weekend. All we tell them is, when you get to the next prison, see if they have the same program. Many of them do. There's a lot, I don't know how many, but a lot of them in Florida have the program. So go through it and sign up there. So we're a little different than most. Like I said, there was one of the prisons that's got a stationary population. They had one out of 6. I'm guessing UCI is pretty high because UCI has been doing this for years, at least 2 a year. A lot of those guys are in for a long time. So I think it's going to vary quite a bit, but it's still a small percent. You're hoping just to create an environment that helps those people, but also helps the whole kind of feel of the prison, if you will.
I was just going to say, I think it does vary a lot over time because prisoners get released. And so, the percentage of people in a prison at any given time who've been on a Kairos weekend is going to vary tremendously.
That'd be a great study. I'd love to see if it mattered. If you got released earlier, if you went on a Kairos weekend, that would be an incentive to go. It's like, oh, or even that you participated in chapel or you did anything that was being nice. I don't know. Thanks, everybody. Oh, yeah. And if you would, if you would sign this, that'd be great. Pick a color.